Hello, this is Yogeshwar 7000 again, and I'm back with another very important topic, and actually very interesting as well. And today we'll be talking about the caste system, and the caste system related to the planets. And of course, the caste system does not make sense in today's day and age. And as a matter of fact, if you look at it from a legal perspective, it's not even legal to consider somebody or to treat somebody differently based on his caste. So, and that's very much there in India, where the caste system had been prevalent for thousands of years because the Vedas gave us that. But as far as Vedic astrology is concerned, once again, it's related to the Vedas. It's one of the arms of the Vedas, Vedic astrology is. And so the ancient sages, and when I talk ancient sages, I'm talking about thousands and thousands of years ago, they have given us a very interesting perspective of the caste system, which is related to the planets. And when we talk about caste system related to the planets, it's not a figment of my imagination. This is given to us by the ancient sages, and this is what they have described the 7 planets, or rather 9 planets, I would say, because we're talking about Jupiter, Saturn, Sun, Mercury, Moon, Mars, Venus, and Rahu and Ketu, that make it 9. So this is what the ancient sages have described, that the caste of Jupiter and Venus is a Brahman caste. And as a, by the way, people who are not aware of the caste system, which had been prevalent in India, especially for my Western viewers, people had been divided into 4 varnas or castes. The Brahman caste, which is the priest class, the Kshatriya caste, which is the warrior caste, the Vaishya caste, which is the business caste, and the Shudra class, which is the servant, or people who do jobs which are related to serving others. So these are the 4 major castes which had been prevalent in India for thousands of years, and of course now it's even illegal to talk about it because there were a lot of problems related to the caste system. So laws were made to discourage people to believe and follow in the caste system. But once again, going back to the ancient sages, what they have described is Jupiter and Venus are the Brahman caste, or the Brahman class, which is the priest class. The Sun and Mars planets, they are classified under the Kshatriyas, or the warrior caste, or the class. The planets Moon and Mercury, they are classified by the ancient sages as the Vaishya caste, or the business class. And Saturn belongs to the Shudra, or people who are servants or who are supposed to be serving others. And the caste is, and the other planets, 2 planets, which are Rahu and Ketu, as per the famous shloka, or the famous saying rather, not a shloka, that Kuja vat Ketu and Shani vat Rahu, meaning which Ketu behaves like Mars and Rahu behaves like Saturn. That's a very famous saying and belief in the world of Vedic astrology. So that qualifies Rahu to become a Shudra, or somebody who can serve others, and Ketu as a warrior, because he's going to be behaving like Mars, so he comes under the warrior class. So that's how the ancient sages have described, or classified rather, the 9 planets into the 4 castes, or the 4 varnas, or the 4 classes rather. But why are we discussing this? What is the purpose of discussing the caste system of the planets in today's age and world? What is the relevance? The relevance is that a birth chart can give us good indications of what a person's nature is like, what his personality is like, what he will most excel in based on the influence of these planets on his birth chart. Say, for example, a person who has an influence on his birth chart, and when I talk influence, look at the ascendant, look at the various houses, look at the strength of the planets. And when you see that if a person has an influence of Jupiter, you know that he belongs to the Brahmin caste, so he's going to excel. And what is the job of a Brahmin? The job of a Brahmin is to get learned and to teach and become a priest-like person who can help others through his sattvic qualities. And people who have not seen my video on Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, I will recommend please refer to those videos. So Jupiter is a very sattvic planet. So if a person has more Jupiter-like qualities, and he's described as a Brahmin as per the ancient sages, and if there's an influence of Jupiter in somebody's chart, then of course his personality will be more Brahmin-like, meaning which he'll try and acquire more and more knowledge, more and more real knowledge. He will move towards pure consciousness, like more sattvic qualities. So the professions recommended to him will be more Brahmin-like professions. And of course, his marriage relationships and his friendship relationships, his interaction with the society, all will be related to the classification of the Brahmin, which he has been described as per the ancient sages. So look out for that indication on a birth chart. Similarly, if you see an indication of Venus, the strength of Venus, the influence of Venus in a birth chart, again, Venus is a Brahmin-like person. But here, he may be a priest, but of course, the difference here may be that Venus may not be pure sattva, or pure consciousness rather. Venus has a lot of rajas in it, which means that his desire to go and attain worldly possessions, his desire to go for luxuries, his desires to have fun. So although his characteristic is a Brahmin-like characteristic, so professions which are recommended to him will be, of course, professions which will involve him to stay pure. And when I say pure, meaning which, other professions, like for example, the profession of a butcher, for example, or a profession of a warrior, they may not be suitable for him. So more purity, where knowledge is, of course, of prime importance, but at the same time, because of his rajas qualities, he may be a Brahmin, but at the same time, he will like to be enjoying the pleasures of life as well, just like the planet Venus is. If you look at the ancient scriptures and the Puranas about Venus, he's a Brahmin, but he is into mantra science, and he's into all kinds of powers which he has acquired through religious rituals and mantras, which he uses to acquire these worldly possessions, and rather helps the demons whom he's a guru of to acquire these worldly possessions. So there's a slight difference between Jupiter and Venus, but both are Brahmins, so they are Brahman-like qualities. So look out for these indications in a birth chart, what planet is influencing. So as per the ancient sages, Jupiter, Venus, both are Brahman-like, but there's a slight difference. One is more sattvic and the other is a little, not a little, pure rajasic rather. Now if you go to the other planets, Sun and Mars, they are considered to be as Kshatriyas, or the warrior classes, as per the ancient sages. And this is coming directly from the sages. This is not some kind of a research done in recent times on Vedic astrology. So the ancient sages have described very clearly as to what class Sun and Mars are in. They're in the Kshatriya class or the warrior class. And again, there's a slight difference here. Sun is more royal, like more of a ruler, and Mars is more aggression, passion, and ambition, and more like a warrior who goes out and conquers, rather. So there's a slight difference, but both are classified by the ancient sages as Kshatriyas or warriors. So look out for the influence of these planets, Sun and Mars, in a birth chart. Look at what's the moon sign, or what planets is sitting with the moon, what planets is influencing the ascendant, the overall chart, what planet is strong when we are talking about Sun and Mars. And if these planets are strong in somebody's birth chart, then he will acquire those qualities. And once again, you can recommend that the professions suited would be more like warrior-like. So you'll see a lot of army generals and people who have been involved in wars and aggressive activities, like aggressive sports would a wrestling competition, boxers. This is more aggressive sports. So these people will come under the classification of the Kshatriya, the warrior class. So those are the professions best suited for them. That's the kind of a personality and the temperament these people will carry with them. The third classification given to us by the sages is the commercial or the business class, which is also in Sanskrit called Vaishyas. And the planets which come under the classification of Vaishyas or the business class are Moon and Mercury. Once again, there's a slight distinction here. Mercury and Moon behave slightly differently. Mercury is pure Rajas, and he can be associated as, for example, look at a very successful stockbroker or somebody like a Warren Buffett who has done exceptionally well. If you look at Warren Buffett's chart, you'll see what I'm talking about. Or a very successful, any successful stockbroker, there is or has to be an influence of the planet Mercury, which is classified under the business class. So look out for those combinations or the influence of that planet rather, and what it's classified under, and then his temperament will be like that to acquire more and more money. His mind and intellect will work towards acquiring more and more money, because that's Rajas quality and more business-like quality. They can be great traders, tradesmen, exporters, importers. That's the influence of Mercury, because as per the ancient sages, once again, they have been classified under the business class or the Vaishya class. And it's pure Rajas as far as Mercury is concerned. A slight distinction here. Moon, of course, also has been classified as a business person or a business class as per the ancient sages, but Moon is more sattvic. He has more sattvic qualities, so he will not always be thinking about acquiring money, and just the way the stock market dealer can think of. He will be a great businessman, of course. So if there's a good influence of Moon in a birth chart, his temperament will be towards business. His intellect will be towards business. He can be a great businessman. He can be a very successful businessman, but at the same time with a very sattvic kind of a nature. So you'll see a lot of ethical businessmen coming under this category, whose birth chart is influenced by the planet Moon. And the fourth category, of course, is the planet Saturn. So you'll see people with good Saturn or strong Saturn influence on their birth charts. Could be strength of the planet, exaltation, influence on Moon, influence on ascendant. That's a little tricky what and how you have to analyze that. But if there's a good and strong and influence of the planet Saturn. Saturn is classified by the ancient sages as a Shudra community, which is people who are well suited to serve others. So they can become very good administrators, and you'll see a lot of people with Saturn can, become good civil servants, can become good diplomats, good administrators, very ethical people, very, very, so as to say, very disciplined people. And that comes under the category of the fourth of the the Shudra class. And the ancient sages have specifically described Saturn as best suited. So look out for that combination in somebody's birth chart, and then you can come up to a conclusion. And of course, like I've already mentioned, Rahu will behave like Saturn, so he's more like Shudra class, and Ketu will behave like Mars, so he's more like Kshatriya class or the warrior class. And so the best professions and his temperament will be accordingly. Ketu as per Mars, Rahu as per Saturn. So this was a little discussion about how the ancient sages have used the caste system and have classified planets under the various caste systems, or the caste system under the various varnas rather, or how they've classified the planets under the various castes rather, and how this knowledge can be used to make good recommendations of what field can be best suited for them. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. In the meanwhile, I will recommend subscribe to my channel and check out my website, and I will see you soon with an interesting topic. Goodbye.